Listeners, NerdWallet wants you to let them do the work for you. Looking for auto insurance? The Nerds will match you with top providers in your area in just a few questions. So getting the right rate for you is as simple as going to nerdwallet.com. After all, letting NerdWallet do the work is more than smart. It's genius. Not all applicants will qualify for the lowest monthly payments. NerdWallet Insurance Services Incorporated. California resident license number OK92033. The Rachel Hollis Podcast is proudly sponsored by Amica Insurance. As Amica says, empathy is our best policy. That's why they'll go above and beyond to tailor your insurance coverage to best fit your needs. Whether you're on the road, at home, or traveling along life's journey, their friendly and knowledgeable representatives will work with you to ensure that you have the right coverage in place. Amica will provide you with peace of mind. Go to amica.com to get a quote today.
As women, we are condemned for acting different all the time. Well, you were happy yesterday, you're not happy now. You wanted to go out and party yesterday, and now all you want to do is sit on the couch. And what I'm trying to help women understand through the lens of hormones and lifestyle is, yeah, that's how you're designed.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and in this show, we talk about everything. Life and work, health and healing, relationships with others and with ourselves. These are stories for the seekers. These are conversations for the curious. This is the Rachel Hollis Podcast. Hey guys, it's Rach. Welcome back to another episode of the show and a new edition in our Mastermind series. Now, if you've never listened to one of these conversations before, I think you're in for a treat. Instead of listening to a full hour and a half interview with an expert, Mastermind episodes bring together the best of the best on a single topic. And today we're diving into something near and dear to my heart, and I know to a lot of you as well: women's health. And not just women's health, but women's health throughout the ages and stages of our life. Women's health is so much more than diet and exercise. It's about understanding our bodies and our hormones. It's about our emotional well-being and how we can thrive through every age that we turn. Today, we've gathered some of the best minds in the space to give us practical and science-backed strategies for optimizing our health and living in alignment with our bodies. You're going to hear from Dr. Mindy Pelz, Dr. Robyn Chutkan, Dr. Taz and Dr. Shivali. Today's episode is about taking charge of your health, honoring your body's wisdom, and stepping into your full power. I hope you love it.
You know, I've sat with patients for almost 15 years now, and we've seen a ton coming through our doors at Center Spring. I feel like there's something about the years 3, 7, 15-ish, and 20, wow. 18 to 20, in relationships and marriages. And if you correlate those ages, they are ages of profound hormone shifts. You know, not to simplify every relationship down to a hormone shift.
Yes.
But what's happening is that as the hormones shift and change for both men and women, this is not, just happening to women, but as they shift and change, like your emotional bandwidth changes, your tolerance changes, your ability to be the things that you need to be in a relationship, whether it's nurturing or empathetic or patient or any of these things, kind of goes out the window. And then if libido is a part of that equation, where partners are no longer together or sleeping together or, intimate, then you've got this like gap that starts to crack and then just widens and widens and widens at each of these years. And they're pivotal years because I feel like if you make it over one of those, then you're good. But if you don't, then that's where we see a lot of the divorces happen. I was talking about this with somebody else, and it was like there's these archetypes of the batty perimenopausal woman, or the angry, perimenopausal woman, or the super depressed, frumpy menopausal woman. So there are these archetypes that keep coming up. And so it keeps the two partners disengaged from each other, right? No one wants to come home to somebody angry or batty, at the same time, the angry person just gets angrier, and so you have this widening gap. So yeah, that's an area that I would like to nail a little bit better for people and be like, okay, here's your playbook.
Yes.
You're walking into a relationship. Here's what happens at year 1. Here's what happens at year 2. And that dynamic of both of you, playing into your hormones and into your medical sort of wellness and your health and your numbers. I think there's something there. And I really feel like I want to explore that even more than what I've learned to date. We are all cyclical, changing creatures, all of us. So even if you're in menopause and listening to this, you're still cycling. So that's just the nature of being a woman. But basically, those cycles are rooted in fluctuating and changing levels of estrogen and progesterone. So in the first half of our cycle, we're seeing estrogen slowly rise, ideally building up that uterine lining, right? And really prepping for ovulation, for conception, for all these different things. If that doesn't happen, then we see estrogen come back down. Progesterone, kind of like midway through the cycle, is starting to go back up, and now is prepping your uterus, that uterine lining, to shed if you haven't, if you're not pregnant or that hasn't actually taken place. So this dance is actually a really neat dance that the body does. It's like, okay, estrogen's coming up slowly, getting ready to maybe get pregnant. Oh, wait, not pregnant. Okay, we need to go back down. It's time to exit. As it exits, your progesterone almost acts like a detox, so to speak. Let's clean the uterus out. Let's remove everything. Let's get it out of the way. And then we're ready to start all over again. So it's kind of this very natural reboot system that the body has. And it is tied to our reproductive health and to our fertility. However, it's actually tied to so many other different symptoms, conditions, and functions of the body. And it's really important for women to first identify what their cycle is. Most of us have a 28-day cycle where days 1 through 14, we're feeling, days 1 through 7, we feel amazing. Estrogen levels are coming up. They're coming up. But for folks like you that have estrogen dominance, when those levels come up too high and too fast, then you start to feel really bad as you hit that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then you go, hopefully you ovulate, and then you have, the decline of the hormones. So a lot of women with imbalanced hormones feel poorly at any of these markers. So some people feel really bad days 7 through 10. Some people feel really bad days 10 through 14 or 15. Some are feeling really bad on that latter half or just the week before, Is
that just based on that they're too low in something, they're not high enough? And is that where the discomfort comes from?
It's the imbalance. So depending, and we can go, I don't know how
how
detailed you want to get.
Just pretend you have this audience of millions of women who are so hungry for information.
Well, let me then
let's
break down those time markers that I just gave you, and I can tell you exactly what's happening in all of those. But before I jump into that, keep in mind that I'm assuming that everyone's got a 28-day cycle.
Yeah.
There are many people that don't, and we need to talk about that too. Some people are on 21-day cycles or 35-day cycles, and there's some issues there too. But ideally, this 28-day cycle is what the majority of women experience. So let's go back. All right. So you've had your cycle. Day 1 is the first day of your period, by the way. I mean, a lot of women that don't know how to count. So
I didn't know either until my doctor told me. He's like, heavy bleed, right? Because I spot a lot
not
building
a spot.
up. So it's
an
a heavy
actual bleed.
Yes.
You've filled a tampon or a pad or something like that. So that's day 1 of your cycle. So you start counting there. Days 1 through 7, estrogen's on its way up, progesterone's still kind of low, but you usually feel pretty good. Most women feel pretty good around this time. As you move to days 7 to 14, estrogen continues to climb. So for our patients that have a lot of issues with estrogen dominance, meaning they have a lot of stored estrogen levels can be high or their stored estrogen is high. And that's a differentiation that we may need to go into because I'll get DMs all the time being like, I checked my estradiol, it was fine. How can I have estrogen dominance? But my answer back is, did you check estrone? Did you look at your liver enzymes? There are all these other things to look at. So anyhow, so estrogen's on its way up. So if you're estrogen dominant, you start to feel bad here. that feeling bad will often peak at ovulation. That's the worst. So we've got a lot of women coming in like days 14, 15, 16 are miserable. They're in the bed, they're unhappy, but they're not having a period. So they're like, what the heck,
What are some of those symptoms, just in case people hear that and they're like, maybe this is what's happening
Definitely.
to me?
Well, some of them are very textbook. Like they will complain of like ovulatory pain. They can feel pain on one side of the pelvis or the other, a little bit higher, even into the upper abdomen or lower abdomen. Other women just don't feel right. They get all of a sudden this huge amount of breast swelling and breast tenderness. They'll start to get a migraine. That's another big one. They'll notice that they bloat, like they don't have bloating. I always talk about this hormone belly as this inflatable balloon.
That took me forever to
conquer.
out.
Yeah. So all of a sudden they're bloating. They're like, wait, I'm pregnant. Like, no, you're not pregnant. So those are some of the different symptoms. And then some of them, going back to mental health, actually, I can't miss that. This window is where somebody with severe depression, mental health issues, this is a vulnerable period for them, right? Because that estrogen surge can trigger bipolar, can trigger a schizophrenic episode, and it can trigger severe depression and anxiety. And we've seen that in practice for sure.
Crap.
Dr. Amen talks about this all the time too. The female brain is surrounded, it's full of estrogen and progesterone receptors. So it's very responsive to what's happening with these levels in the body. So that's why it's so critical. I mean, I get patients with all kinds of diagnoses coming through, mental health diagnoses, not hormone diagnoses, mental health diagnoses.
Yes.
I mean, I could tell you a million stories, but I think this one is the most significant. Like I had a physician family bring, the mom in, the physician brought his wife in. And this was a vibrant, productive woman who is now like crying, refusing to dress herself, like a total different person.
Wow.
Been everywhere. They've been to every specialist. This is a physician, right? So you're going to go to every specialist. You're going to go to every clinic in the country with the biggest name and couldn't get answers and had heard about our clinic and kind of what I do. And brought her in. She was having estrogen surges. And so in her case, because she was so extreme, we had to shut her cycle down because we couldn't control how high she was surging and then how low she was falling back off. Totally normal sense. Absolutely fine. Not on an antidepressant, not on an anti-anxiety, nothing. So, I mean, there's so many stories like that.
Sure.
That's just one. But that is a critical time for any woman, who is dealing with a mental health issue, is that ovulatory peak, couple of days before, the couple of days right after that. Then you go into the statistic that you were just talking about. So now estrogen's coming back down. Progesterone is supposed to be coming up. But here is what's happening in the majority of women, and I would say of all ages. It just gets exaggerated in perimenopause and menopause. Those progesterone levels from the get-go, out of the gate, are so low today because of high cortisol, because of a toxic environment, because of all these different factors, that when we hit this phase where progesterone levels are slowly coming up, but then they're going to go down, so we have this withdrawal bleed. So everything's like on these cycles, right? So you have the estrogen cycle going up and then down. Progesterone staggers it a little bit, comes up and is starting to go down. But progesterone levels naturally should not really be going down until about day 21 or so. But what's happening today in a lot of women, that drop is happening at days 15, 16, 17. So they're bottoming out by the time they hit day 18 and 19. Wow. Some of those women will go on to have periods. So remember, I talked about the women with the 21-day period. They are having that low progesterone issue. Now, for women who have some reserve, they don't have that withdrawal bleed at day 21. They can continue out through that 28-day cycle, but they start to feel really bad as you hit days 24, 25, 26, 27, and then you finally bleed. So those symptoms where that suicide risk is, where anxiety is, a lot of women have palpitations. That window is where we see the 2 to 4 a.m. waking up in the morning constantly. We'll see some hot flashes or night sweats, even in a young woman, not just in a menopausal woman. All of that is low progesterone.
The New Balance 1080 is the ultimate daily trainer, combining reliable comfort and top-tier performance. I live in my sneakers. I use them to walk around the block, to run around my neighborhood, and to get all the chores done in a day that I need to as a working mom. So whether you're logging miles or running errands, the 1080 seamlessly transitions from the coffee shop to the grocery store, to the podcast studio, or wherever else you've got to get things done. The New Balance 1080 features a cushioned midsole for secure support and comfort, while the totally lightweight, breathable mesh upper keeps your feet cool and fresh on every run. Shop the 1080 at newbalance.com. Coming into the new year, it was time for a big reset for our family. We had so much fun over the holidays, and we indulged in sugar and all the stuff we normally wouldn't have, which is why I love coming back into a routine with Thrive Market. Thrive Market lets you easily find trusted, family-friendly brands and shop based on your needs. So things like low sugar or gluten-free, organic or high protein, you can filter them without the hassle of grocery store trips. Plus, with the Healthy Swap scanner in the app, you can scan a product you already buy and get instant recommendations for cleaner, healthier alternatives. Ready for a junk-free start to 2025? Head to thrivemarket.com/Rach and you'll get 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/Rach. thrivemarket.com/Rach.
I consider gut health really whole body health because of the fact that the gut is feeding all these other organs and has such a profound influence on them. You know, I trained at great places, Yale, Columbia, Mount Sinai. I didn't understand it either until like a decade of being a doctor. I mean, I understood gut health, don't get me wrong, but that gut immune connection, because in medical school, you learn about the immune system as a sort of ethereal thing. It's these, immune cells floating around and, where are they? Well, it turns out that about 70 to 80% of your immune system is actually in your gut. And so in the gut, we have this razor-thin gut lining. It's literally one cell thick. And on one side, we have the trillions of microbes, not just bacteria, but also viral organisms, parasites, fungal organisms, all kinds of different microbes. Although when we talk about the microbiome, we're mostly talking about bacteria. But on one side of the gut lining, you have the microbes. And on the other side of this razor-thin lining, we have the immune cells. And they are in constant conversation. They are literally, it's this hand-in-glove relationship. And so, for example, if there is a bad player in the gut, let's say Ebola gets into your body and Ebola is traveling through your gut, those microbes send a message to the immune cells on the other side. And in some cases, it's a physical message. They literally press on the gut lining to say, hey, there's a bad player in here. You guys need to take care of this. You need to do something. So they send a signal. Sometimes it's a chemical signal, sometimes it's literally like a kick in the pants of the gut lining. And the immune cells then start to make antibodies. They do all their different things. They release cytokines to handle the problem. So the microbes are like the lookout on one side of the gut lining. And again, there's this constant interaction. So when I describe that to you, you start to see how, if the microbiome is messed up and you don't have enough of those lookout cells or things are disturbed, or if your gut lining is compromised, that signaling with the immune system is not going to take place properly. And when we think about immune disorders, think about the millions of people with autoimmune disorders. 1 in 4 Americans have an autoimmune disorder. I have a couple.
Wow.
I have urticaria and eczema. Many of my patients have Crohn's plus psoriasis plus something else. And what an autoimmune disease is, it means that your immune system is overreacting to your body's normal tissue. Of course, my autoimmune diseases are well controlled because I have figured out what is the connection between what's going on in my gut and my immune system. But it is still the set of diseases that I love to treat in patients because a gut-focused approach to your immune system works so successfully for so many people. And also, you don't rely on those immune suppressing drugs. So for autoimmune diseases, typically what we do is we give people drugs like steroids or biologics that quiet down their immune system. And these drugs can be incredible and life-changing and really get disease under control. But unfortunately, when you suppress the immune system, now you have to deal with things like cancer and infection. So figuring out what is going on in the gut, and it's not always just the gut. There are other factors, genetic, environmental, besides what's going on in your gut. But it's a huge factor, Rachel, for most people with autoimmune disease. And when you can figure out how to bring that immune response down, but not so low that now you're immunocompromised. So you want that Goldilocks immune system that's just right, that's going to react enough to clear the virus, but not, that's still going to be able to mount that immune response, but not react so much that you're going to end up destroying tissue and having rheumatoid arthritis or Crohn's or psoriasis or eczema or any one of these over 100 different autoimmune diseases that people struggle with. And the most important thing I want people to understand is that an increase in gut permeability, leaky gut, as most people would recognize it, is more about something you're doing that's messing up your gut lining than it is about a pill you're going to take to fix it. I see so many supplements on the market, whether it's zinc or glutamine or whatever it is, and people think that they can take a pill and just zip up that gut lining and presto. No, you have to look at the ultra-processed food you're eating, all the emulsifiers, the carrageenan, the soy lecithin, the guar gum. And unfortunately, sometimes when people are trying to make what they think is a healthier choice, so they're going from cow's milk to a plant milk, but they're drinking a plant milk that's full of these emulsifiers. And what we have seen is that emulsifiers and preservatives in food literally mess up that gut lining. They interfere with the microbiome also. They can disrupt the gut lining. And so when we look at the data on ultra-processed foods, it's not just gut problems we see. We are seeing dementia and neurocognitive problems. We're seeing an increased risk of premature death. And we are now in the US up to more than 55% of the calories we consume are from ultra-processed foods.
Whoa.
So it's crazy, right? And, I look around at the obesity epidemic. I look around at the autoimmune epidemic. I look around at the ADD epidemic, the mental health, all of it. And I look at what people are eating.
Yes.
So much of what people are eating is not food. It's edible food-like substances. It is, food-derived bioingredients. I remember doing a little post a year or so ago pointing at, I was reading this granola bar, the ingredients, and I read some stuff and it was like bioengineered ingredients. And I said, listen, we can make car tires from corn, but car tires are not food. So food-derived ingredients are not food. And I still love Michael Pollan's food rules are still fantastic. Like 5 or fewer ingredients, don't eat food your grandmother or grandfather would not have recognized as food. And if it's not in your pantry or kitchen, then you probably shouldn't be eating it. If you're seeing something, sodium pyrophosphate, that should be in the chemistry lab. That is not a food ingredient. That is a bio-derived food ingredient. So, people talk about the screens and all these different things, and sure, all of it, but the food is a huge one. And so
absolutely,
in terms of leaky gut, we really have to look at the food we're eating. Alcohol is another thing that disrupts the gut lining. There are some things that are beyond our control. Some people have had radiation, for example, for cancer, and radiation can damage a gut lining. But the things that we're ingesting would be the food, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So those are things that contain ibuprofen. That's your Advil, your Anacin, your Aleve, your Naproxen, even your regular aspirin. Literally make holes in the gut lining. Every time I am on call at the hospital, I am getting a call from the intensive care unit or the emergency room. We have somebody with a bleeding ulcer. You need to come down here and scope them. And we have had multiple cases of fatal bleeding from ulcers in the GI tract from NSAIDs. In fact, NSAID use, I believe, in the medical literature is the most common cause of blood loss from the gastrointestinal tract. And I want to remind people, if you are more concerned about how your face looks, your skin, than what's going on in your gut, you are not vain. You are a normal human being, because our skin is, and even for me as a gastroenterologist, when somebody walks into my office, their skin is the first thing I see before I examine their abdomen or do a rectal exam or scope them. And I can actually tell a lot about what's going on in their gut from looking at their skin. Rosacea, psoriasis, acne, eczema, all of that. And so I want people to know, number one, you are not vain. This is totally normal. This is what we present to the world. This is what we see reflected back in the mirror. And when there's something happening in your skin, it's usually because there's something happening systemically in your body, and it's often in the gut. So I want people to pay attention to that. But I just got so frustrated with seeing particularly young people who have been put on years of antibiotics, Rachel, for acne, or women treated with antibiotics for rosacea. And then they come in, not only is their gut ruined, but their skin is ruined because now they've disrupted the skin microbiome. And what you were talking about, the gut lining, that plays a big role because when you have increased permeability of the gut, substances can literally translocate through that gut lining, get into the bloodstream, trigger an immune response elsewhere in your body, and the skin is a common elsewhere for that inflammation to show up. And so in this gut skin series that I'm doing, I started out with just, let me explain the foundation for the gut skin axis. And the episodes are short. They're all like less than 20 minutes. So this isn't a long, dreary textbook explanation, but just explaining how the gut is connected to the skin and how the skin is connected to the gut. And then in the next series of episodes, I go through acne, eczema, rosacea, and psoriasis with a gut-based approach. Because if you, or let's say you have a teenager, are dealing with this terrible skin issue, and the dermatologist is dangling some doxycycline in front of you and saying, this is going to clear you up in 2 weeks. Like, that's what you want. You want that. And not understanding that that is going to create more resistant, more pathogenic bacteria on your skin. It's going to mess up your gut. It's going to increase your risk for an autoimmune disease, for allergies, all the rest of it. But what else can you do? It's not enough to just tell people, don't do this. You have to offer them alternatives that are going to work. And actually, a gut-based approach to the skin stuff is going to be more successful in the long run. And for me, I talked about my autoimmune disease. I had eczema, I had urticaria, I had rosacea. I had to totally change my diet. I had to totally change my relationship to alcohol, to a lot of different things to clear up the rosacea, and started drinking a green smoothie every day. And now it's one of the favorite parts of what I do is helping people clear up their skin, because I understand what it's like to look in the mirror and, see like blotchy red skin or, whatever you're dealing with. And it really does start from the gut.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists create connectivity solutions that change the way we work, live, and play. Like Kunle, a Comcast engineer who is focused on revolutionizing the in-home Wi-Fi experience today and for the next generation. Learn more at ComcastCorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
Hi, I'm Katie Nolan from the internet and cable TV, or as your mom called me, that sports gal from Celebrity Jeopardy. I have a new podcast called Casuals. It's a podcast for people who like sports a normal amount. No stats or spreadsheets, nary an X or O to be found. Just laid back, casual banter about home runs, hockey fights, and good old-fashioned drama. Casuals is a twice-a-week hang with me and my friends from across comedy, sports, and entertainment, where we talk about all the funny, weird, interesting stuff happening in and around the world of sports. Think of it as all the best things about sports with none of the homework. So whether you're a diehard fan or vaguely sports curious, Casuals is the podcast for you. You can find Casuals on the SiriusXM app, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to smash that follow button. That way you'll never miss an episode. Just try it. You can always unsmash it.
As women, we are condemned for acting different all the time. Well, you were happy yesterday, you're not happy now. You wanted to go out and party yesterday, and now all you want to do is sit on the couch. And what I'm trying to help women understand through the lens of hormones and lifestyle is, that's how you're designed. You're not undisciplined because you don't feel like working out on day 23 of your cycle. Your beautiful feminine body is saying, rest me. And to your point, guess what's going to happen? On day 3 of your cycle, estrogen's an extrovert. So as estrogen starts to build, she's going to bring dopamine and serotonin and acetylcholine and all these amazing neurotransmitters, and you're going to be the life of the party again. A new thing I put in Eat Like a Girl is I'm like, if estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone were at a party, estrogen would be like, this is amazing. Oh my God. And she would be out like dancing on the table. She would be everybody's friend. testosterone would be like, this is awesome. Can we keep this going all night long? And then progesterone would be in the corner hiding by herself. And she would be like, when is this over? What I always tell women is you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, that's the beauty of the female body. So when we look at fasting, yeah, you can fast and get all those benefits if you do them at the right time of the month. And then you need to step out of fasting. And this is the most simple way I can explain it, is day 1 through day 10 is our hormones on day 1. Day 1, by the way, many women don't know this, is the day you have to use feminine care products. So like you're literally bleeding enough that not spotting, but bleeding enough that you have to start using products. That's day 1. For the next 10 days, estrogen is going to build. So you go from a place of low hormones to a place of high estrogen. In that time, fasting works amazing. Like if you and I had the conversation when you were trying fasting before and you were like, I'm so hungry. If we had gone then to day 1 or day 2 of your cycle, you would have probably said, you know what? I'm actually not hungry anymore.
Yeah, when I'm actually on my period, I'm not. I'm not that hungry. Yeah.
So those first 10 days, fast as much as you want. In Fast Like a Girl, I map out 6 different lengths. You choose according to what you're trying to do. Great thing to do in those first 10 days. Then we come into ovulation, day 11 to day 15. The couple things for women to know is we ovulate a different day every month, and we ovulate from a different ovary. It's like, we never know which one. But during ovulation, estrogen is at her peak. You have the most amount of testosterone, which I think is so fascinating because men get testosterone about every 15 minutes. We get testosterone in this 5-day window. So there already is a mismatch of testosterone needs between men and women, which I find so fascinating. But you bring testosterone in and then you get a little bit of progesterone. Okay, so you have all these hormones. In Fast Like a Girl, I called it the manifestation phase because you are locked and loaded with your superpower hormones. But because progesterone is there, you can't fast very long. So between day 10 and day 15, you need to keep your fast a little bit lower. I tell people you can intermittent fast, but you don't go into a long 3-day water fast then. And honestly, all those hormones that are being released have to be broken down and used. So food is a better resource for your hormonal health at that point. And this is Eat Like a Girl, I talk about this, but your salads, your prebiotic, your probiotic, your polyphenol foods, lots of plant-based foods are really helpful for feeding the microbiome so they can break estrogen down and make her very usable. So I'd rather in that window, if you want to intermittent fast, go for it. But I want you to lean into food more as your hormonal support. Then when we come out of ovulation, day 16 to day 19, the hormones drop again. Fasting works great. Go back into fasting. And then day 20 is when progesterone comes in. And that's when you absolutely don't fast. And you start eating more of nature's carbs like squashes and potatoes. So sweet potato is like progesterone's best friend. And like quinoa and tropical fruits, bananas and mangoes, like a little higher carbs is going to help nourish progesterone. So that's, if you look at it in a 28, this is the other thing I found out women don't know is that some of us have a 28-day cycle. Some of us have a 32-day cycle. So if you look at us in a 30-day window, if you follow that, what I just recommended, which is what I call the fasting cycle, you have 15 days of the month where you can fast a little longer if you want to drop weight or have that mental clarity or get more health benefits. And then the other 15 days, you really want to think more about food as your hormonal support. So women in their perimenopausal years, when the focus is off, this is why we need to fast more so we can get those ketones to bring our brain back online, which is exactly what you experienced. So I didn't want to lose that because what you said on that makes so much sense. So with that, we'll put that aside. Losing weight with fasting. So there's a couple of things that I think, and especially what happens in the perimenopausal years. The thing that most people don't realize is that as estrogen goes away, you become more insulin resistant. This is why the diet at 35 that allowed you to lose weight doesn't work anymore at 45. Because estrogen, your whole estrogen system has changed, and you are each year becoming more and more insulin resistant, regardless of, eating the same things you always ate. So you need a new strategy as you go through those perimenopausal years to get yourself insulin sensitive. So when we go into these fasted states, let's say you're going 15 hours, what's happening in that time as the blood sugar is going down and your body is now in this fat burner metabolic state is that those 15 hours, your body is burning fat to make a ketone so that your brain can work the way that you just mentioned. So those little chunks of 15 hours, if you go even longer, you'll burn more fat. The longer you go, the more fat gets burned. But what's happening is it becomes this like adjunct tool to the fact that the female body becomes more insulin resistant. Now, if you add to that a little lower carbohydrate diet, so in Eat Like a Girl, I map out 2 different styles. One I call ketobiotic, which is you're just eating protein, if you're vegan, you can stay in the more of the legumes. If you're not, you can have animal meat, and your carbs are coming only from vegetables. That's ketobiotic. The other style of
No fruit.
You can do berries.
Okay.
You can do berries.
Okay.
And then the other style is hormone feasting. When progesterone's around, you have a bigger variety, and that's where you can go into more of the squashes and the potatoes and quinoa, rices. I'm a fan of even some of even though the book is all gluten-free, I'm a fan of like fermented sourdough bread and things like that. But those are better eaten on days when progesterone is coming around in your cycle. There are times of the month when we do really well with low carbohydrate, and we will keep our weight where we want it to be. If we look at day 1 through day 10 and day 16 through day 19, those are your low carb moments. And again, by low carb, I mean your carbs are coming from fruit, from vegetables, and you can have some berries. And then the other times of the month, day 10 to day 15 and day 20 until your period, you're going to go higher carb. But you're not, this isn't eat your pizza. I mean, I love that you have your one day with your cupcake.
Oh God, it makes me so happy.
Yeah, you're literally every woman. And it's so interesting when I spent so many years studying progesterone and like what her personality was like and how does she want to be treated? And when I finally found the study showing, she wants glucose to be higher, I was like, oh my gosh, every woman, every ladies' night out I've ever sat at, women will sit and they will bitch about how much they are eating the week before their periods. So then when I started speaking to audiences, I was like, how many women want to eat more carbohydrates and want to eat more the week before their period? And every single one raises their hand. And I'm like, yeah, because you were meant to. You were meant to.
Yeah.
It wasn't because you were undisciplined. So stop turning on yourself. And that's what I heard in that statement it's like, stop being so hard on yourself. It is okay to have pleasure with food. And if you do it the week before your period, you're actually honoring your beautiful feminine body. And you're saying, thank you for giving me that craving. I'm going to now give you some nourishing food that supports this craving that you're getting me. And you're now working with your body, not against it.
There is a way out of this madness called parenting, but it can only be through conscious parenting. I mean, I just don't see any other way.
But at the same time, they won't take the time to invest or care for themselves. Is that because that's the example that we had, or why does that end up happening?
Well, it is because of what we've been trained to do, which is to be in enmeshed relationships. And we kind of equate that to be health, especially with our children. So we truly use our children, quote unquote, as substances to distract us until they leave the house, and then we're depressed. That's the prototypical trajectory of the woman who hasn't given herself the gift and the liberation to explore her own identity outside of it. So we
Right.
become these over-involved, over-controlling, over-helicoptering parents. What we don't realize is that, yes, our kid may see us less, but what they're seeing is a very fulfilled human being. So we have to do a slight trade-off where we can be absent, but so present in our own bodies and our own joy, versus being present 24/7, but absent of joy and presence, right? So there's a trade-off. And when of course, our children are our first priority because they need us. But as they become 6 or 7, it's really important to end that enmeshment and create individuation. So to expect rebellion, right? So like you said, we want our children to be joyful. We also want our children to be empowered. But that empowerment means they will separate from you. They will individuate from you. They will rebel against you. They will defy you. They will say no to you. They will call you on your bullshit, because that is the empowered adult, right? Who can call bullshit. But we don't want that, because we're so insecure that means we will be null and void. But actually, when we are convinced of our own belonging, of our own self-belonging, then we allow defiance and are actually not even rattled by it, but we welcome it. We honor it. We see it as imperative when our children are flying and leaving the coop. So adolescent rebellion, toddler rebellion, whatever word you want to call it, is actually healthy. It is natural individuation that absolutely must occur in order for our children to understand that they are their own being and they are not us and they don't live for us. But we need to give them those keys to set themselves free and uncage themselves. And most parents have their tentacles into their kids' psyche, and it's as subtle as, Mommy, what should I eat for lunch? Now, of course, we're not a hotel and we can't give a buffet meal every time, but we can say something as simple as, oh, I have a couple options, but what does your body say it needs? Just that fine tuning. Or when your kid is going to college, Mom, what should I major in? And before you jumping in, you go, what would your inner voice say? Or, Mom, where should I go to college? I don't know. What does your inner voice say? Just that little pause allows children to know that they have a voice that they need to listen to, and then listen to ours, but if they want. But they have their own voice. Where is that voice? And that daily dedication to honing our children's inner voice takes a lot of courage from the parent, because that means you have to freaking listen to that voice. And most of the times that voice is an idiotic voice, or the voice just says, I don't know, right? My daughter, that's all she says all day, I don't know. And I go, well, you got to know. Go dig in more, right? I know exactly what she needs to eat, do, or think, but I have to resist that, because we have to let the children plow through their own fog to arrive at their answer. It's painful as a parent because they're really like clueless. And you're like, can you just do this, right? We know what they should do. But that's not what a conscious parent needs to do. A conscious parent needs to step back and let the children discover. That process of discovery is what I teach really in conscious parenting. Conscious parenting is focusing on the being, but that doesn't mean we don't do. So we pick up the garbage, we, flush the toilet, we brush our teeth. And the problem with many families is not that they don't know what the doing is versus the being. The problem is there's too much doing. So yeah, you can have a few doings in the day, but if you stack up your kid with a lot of doings, like, oh, now we're going to separate the winter clothes from the summer clothes, and the kid is 4 years old, you're going to get resistance. Because the kid can't do too much, right? So you have to, there's doing, but keep it within the developmental age appropriate, right? The other day, a parent said to me, what do you think, Dr. Shivali, of my 6-year-old, making her bed and putting her clothes in the hamper and getting ready and having a shower and coming down and having a smoothie and helping me make breakfast? I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. What are you expecting a 6-year-old to do? So we actually err too much on the doing, and then we are entrapped, right? I was like, the kid cannot make their bed. The kid at 6 cannot make their bed and do that and do that. So maybe twice a week they make their bed. Like, you ease them into this, right? Like, when a kid comes home tired from school, you should hear the instructions coming out of your mouth, right? Put your backpack away. Put your shoes away. Now go wash your hands. And then, come on, let's eat for 12 minutes. And then let's start our first activity. I mean, what do we expect our kids to do? Kids live in the being state. So, of course, they need to do. But be careful. If everything is a doing and a law and a rule, then you and yourself are going to be your worst enemies, because you have one long list that you've decided all needs to be done by 7 p.m. And children don't run by machine. You're looking for the button. There isn't a button. So be careful, because children actually are not mini yous, mini adults. They're not. They're children. So children by nature need to be in a lot of being and a lot of ease and relaxation. They're not meant to go for 10 activities every week. They're really not. So we in this mad culture have overemphasized so much structured instructional doing, and we've taken out the play, we've taken out the unstructured, we've taken out the free time, we've taken out the dream state. And that's why we suffer, because we are going against the grain of what childhood is about. And I actually talk about that a lot in my book. It's my new book called The Parenting Map. I talk about how to stay in the play state, how to stay in the connected state. Children need connection. They don't need to go for an art exhibit at the MoMA. They really don't. They don't need to go skiing in the Alps. They really don't. They just need a childhood. And we have really robbed them of their childhood. Again, because of the way we were raised and the way we're taught to raise our children. The young parent, like you, I'm going to call you a young parent, of young kids. Yeah, I'm going to give that to you today. You are, even though you've had kids in other decades, but right now you're dealing with young children. It's really a challenge. I mean, I raised, my daughter's 20, so I'm out of this technological inundation. And I have to say, it's so challenging, because that is the default, right? Before, yeah, sure, we wanted to watch cartoons on TV, but they only came on certain times and days.
Right.
We couldn't get the TV in our pocket, right? So now the kid has it in their back pocket all the time. So you're always battling that. And if you're tired and distracted, you're going to be like, okay, just go on the computer, right? Because it seems so easy. So what I would encourage parents of young kids to really, below the age of 12, to really understand that technology is like crack cocaine for a young mind. So give it sparingly. That doesn't really sound right. If you are going to give it, you have to give it really, really sparingly, because it's so addictive. So what does that mean? Yeah, it means that you have to be more present. You have to be more connected. And let them be bored, and tolerate them and yourself in that boredom, because they can become beasts, right? Mom, YouTube. And they can wear you down. But I think before the age of 12, we have to be really strong now as parents, even more than I was as a parent, because of this addiction. It's right around the corner. And it leads to isolation. Yeah, many parents tell me that, oh, but my kid is interacting with other kids. It doesn't matter. That's not real interaction, right? That's virtual interaction. So while that's better than zero, it's not ideal. And especially for boys who tend to go toward video games and play it for hours, you have to be even more cognizant as a parent. But I'm not going to lie and pretend it's easy. And I'm not going to guilt trip the parent who is exhausted herself, and the single mom who just like whatever. It's okay. Your kid is not going to die, but I just want parents to, as much as possible, tolerate the boredom. That's really what it is. If you can tolerate the boredom, your kid will eventually, after 20 minutes of driving you stir-fried crazy, will find something to do. But it's those 20 minutes of hell that you have to endure. Because the kid is just pulled to it, it's too attractive. Look at us with our phones. It's too attractive. I have to stop myself from going on my phone as well. So I can only imagine how it is for the kid. It's like Candyland, right? Every day at their fingertips. So there's no easy answer, but I think you have to be extra conscious, extra strong.
The Rachel Hollis Podcast is produced by me, Rachel Hollis. It's edited by Andrew Weller and Jack Noble.
Hi, I'm Katie Nolan from the internet and cable TV, or as your mom called me, that sports gal from Celebrity Jeopardy. I have a new podcast called Casuals. It's a podcast for people who like sports a normal amount. No stats or spreadsheets, nary an X or O to be found. Just laid back, casual banter about home runs, hockey fights, and good old-fashioned drama. Casuals is a twice-a-week hang with me and my friends from across comedy, sports, and entertainment, where we talk about all the funny, weird, interesting stuff happening in and around the world of sports. Think of it as all the best things about sports with none of the homework. So whether you're a diehard fan or vaguely sports curious, Casuals is the podcast for you. You can find Casuals on the SiriusXM app, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to smash that follow button. That way you'll never miss an episode. Just try it. You can always unsmash it.